Hello and welcome to my next session in the Wellness and Hospitality series. With me, I have another very special guest, Nick Irani, son of the founder of Subtle Energies. So lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Sonal. It's really lovely to meet you here, and thanks for having us on the podcast.
I have to admit, I am a huge, huge, huge fan of your brand and nothing better than hearing it from you directly. Tell us about Subtle Energies. I know you're into skin science, more for holistic wellness offering, working the luxury space. Tell us more about your beautiful story.
Well, Subtle Energies first started many years ago, 31 years ago now, as a clinic by my mother. My mother, Farida Irani, she began her study. She was working in the corporate world before. She had the big hair, the long nails, the high heels, but she always had a passion for natural therapies, thanks to her father. Her father was a big believer in natural therapies. She also had a very strong connectivity to from a yoga and spirituality point of view as well. But it was not until we moved to Australia that she began studying her natural therapies. So she started studying anything from remedial massage to clinical aromatherapy. She went on to doing aromatic medicine, which is a different degree of qualification altogether. She studied Ayurveda as well, and she did a postgraduate studies with Professor Kulkarni. Professor Kulkarni they called him a modern grandfather of Ayurveda. He was the dean of the Pune University of Ayurveda, and a lot of well-known Ayurveda doctors, accomplished Ayurveda doctors, learnt under him. And he was a beautiful man and an amazing practitioner as well, and a researcher. My mother said that what she learned sitting in his clinic, um, you know, and what she observed, no books can really teach you. And she's a big believer in that. She went on to develop Subtle Energies as a clinic first, and the clinic still operates to this day. It's although part-time, mainly works with supporting people through cancer, aged care, drug addiction, schizophrenia, um, mental health conditions like chronic fatigue, manic depression. She's also assisted people with fertility issues and a broad range of chronic conditions. And I battle with her sometimes because I'm like, it's time to close the clinic down. She is in her 70s now as well, still going strong. But I she tells me, she goes, where do you think all the knowledge came from? Where do you think all of this came from? Books are important, yes, but unless you're working with people, unless you're touching people, how do you know what's good for them? And so she wins that argument, and so and that's one of the things about what underpins the brand now, Subtle Energies, is that we have, if you ask my mother what her job is, she'll say, I'm a therapist. She won't say I'm a founder of Subtle Energies. And that's something very unique. And we're very fortunate because we've got her and also my sister as well. My sister is a degree holder in Chinese medicine, acupuncture, clinical aromatherapy, Ayurveda aromatherapy, and many other modalities as well. And again, her primary occupation is as a therapist. And so she took my mother's work because when my mother first went to teach spas, it was too much information. And so she took the work of my sister and made it more teachable for spas in a commercially viable format without compromising on the integrity of it. But how we started in spa was and wellness world was actually um, you know, through my mother's work. We weren't working with them at the time. She had a clinic, she had her courses. We have a government accredited diploma in Ayurveda aromatherapy, which was one of the first of its kind. And so my mother was busy with those aspects and her research through the oils that she'd come across. She'd come across very rare and unique oils, which later on got termed Ayurveda aromatherapy, and that's what she's regarded as one of the pioneers of. And it was through that work that the Taj Group of hotels actually found my mother through her work, and they and together with Anna Berstrom, who was the consultant on the project as well, and they saw Mum and they said that we want you to design the oils for our spas. And it was through her research and through her knowledge that we designed the oils for their spas under their label, and we still, that's 20 years on, we've been doing that. But we realized through that work, we actually could access more people. We could actually reach more people through the spa and wellness world, as aside from the clinic. although we had to then become a brand. So we developed skincare, we developed body care. We didn't have that before. We partnered with chemists who specialize in the German standard of natural skincare at that time, which is now under the one European umbrella. And we launched that in 2010 with Six Senses, and then our journey started from there. And so the brand itself stemmed from clinical origins, education background into the wellness world at a time where the wellness world was looking for depth in training, depth in therapies that we that people are looking for. So, in a very small nutshell, that's subtle energies, the background of it.
I am a huge, 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 huge fan of what you guys do. And just the story in itself, the way the brand was born was from actual touching people, seeing people. It's evidence based and not only just research, but you're seeing real life examples. And I think that is so powerful, especially in an industry that we've grown so quickly, and it's some areas have become quite gimmicky, whereas we've kind of in certain areas lost who we are, that anchor of solving people's problems, helping them live a better, longer life, better quality life. So I find, there are few brands that actually nail it the way you do. And, you know, going to see where the industry is right now and how you've actually got into the hotel industry. Many of my clients are boutique hotel owners who are getting into this industry right now. You're coming like 3 or 4 years into, a post pandemic. But how have you seen the industry shift when I'm talking about wellness within hospitality? Your experience working. How have these last few years shifted your perspective on hospitality, and also how wellness is being implemented in them?
Sure. I think the pandemic was, while of course, there's big shifts already because of the trend, and you see the data that's coming out of the Global Wellness Institute, the economy of scale of wellness industry or the economy growing. But I think the pandemic really catalyzed that in a way that was, unexpected, understandable, but unexpected. And what I mean by that, what we were doing, like many others, we were using our education via webinars, online meditations, talks on fear and anxiety. We did the International Ayurveda Yoga Conference together with a lot of different speakers to those, and that was done primarily for those affected in the hospitality industry by what was happening. And that was in the early time when we didn't know how the industry will survive, what will happen. There was a lot of unknowns. Um, and so what we saw was a broad participation of these events from within the hospitality industry. Yes, of course, the spa teams, the yoga teachers, you expect them to join, but these were the finance teams, the F&B, every level, F&B directors to managers, to staff, the accountants, the people who normally would look at the wellness side as a why have we got this here? The GMs as well, the travel partners. One of our hotel partners did an amazing thing where they called on us to do these talks after we'd done it for them for their travel partners. And again, they saw wellness. The term wellness can be so many different things, but they saw well-being and they saw um, how that could impact themselves personally and how they can do it for themselves because people were searching at the time. So it was a very personal transformation that happened during that time. And it showed how crucial the work is from within the space, and that we're much part, and also how much we're part of also a bigger hospitality ecosystem. We also learned as well in that time as well. So yeah, so we saw some very cool changes in that industry in that sense as well.
And like with anything, it's clear that wellness, I mean, these last few years have been quite pivotal in actually putting wellness on the map. And now you go to any hotelier, there's no doubt that wellness is important. It's much needed, even in terms of employee well-being and guest well-being. And, the guests are demanding that. But with any kind of strong increase or any kind of growth that happens in any industry and rapid growth, there are always things that we do need to be wary about. So, what are your, would you say, three main concerns regarding the future of the industry?
Well, while the industry saw the need for it. There was also, when it was back to business, suddenly there was a massive shift to cost cutting as well. And I think Sue Harmsworth recently talked about the need for training as well recently at one of the conferences. And it's understandable. And we were very nurturing through that as well, cost cutting and training and things like that as well. But then that led to cracks emerging. But now it's a time of rebuilding as well. So, it's about nurturing them during that time when, okay, we figure out how to do that and get them through. But now it's an aspect of nurturing and rebuilding. And I have to say, there are been a lot of our hotel groups who have acknowledged that and are like, okay, now we need to get back to getting in some training, getting the standards up. We've maintained as much as we could. We've done what we can, but ongoing training is a very big part. Um, I guess part of what is needed and is a concern that needs to be always as it grows, that needs to be there. And that leads to my second point is which is training and commitment. As the industry I guess moves to a space of wanting to provide what's authentic, the hardest resource to come by is therapists. And the second hardest is the time to be able to train them. And train them in a place of depth if that's what the property wants. It doesn't always have to be
True.
what we want as well. So we could be like, knocking on a door going, you need to have this kind of training. But actually, we've also learned that not everyone needs or deserves or should have, the more advanced massage techniques or, because it might not be necessary. And so we're learning that as well. And the battle between, and there's never a straight answer. There's been a battle between operations and training since, since
Age
start,
old,
since start of the health clubs, as well. I
you
think
they a therapist removed from training to go and give a
cost.
treatment.
It's a
That's
cost to them. So we understand it as well. So, and then the last thing is like, and I think you said it before, is, as things grow, and we've seen this with Ayurveda as well as an industry, growing from within India. Ayurveda is being re-imported back into India almost. It's anything that gets popular, anything that gets, mainstream as well. You're going to get offerings that are authentic, and then you're going to get ones which are just marketed really well, or ones just meets the criteria, or maybe doesn't meet it at all, but it's sort of just um, they talk about green marketing. You've also got, I guess, wellness washing as well. And having said that as well, though, as that happens, what happens is that people do then search for authenticity, and those who've done that first layer sometimes then rebuild on themselves. So there is a positive outlook to it as well, for sure.
And where do you see our industry in the short, mid, and long term? So let's say the short term is that takes us to summer next year, or spring, summer next year. Midterm would probably be 2026, and then 2027 is long term. Where do you see us?
Well, I think, and again, my view is also, there's multiple views on this, and I think there are industry pundits who have a lot more data than myself as well. But definitely there is a push towards what's being termed longevity clinics as well. We're seeing that more and more in the term longevity, and I think there is a debate about the term itself, and I think I'm not worried about the term. It's like wellness. There's so many definitions within it as well, and the term longevity has been used by some people for a very long time. Um, and in an Ayurveda, the word longevity falls in one of the branches of medicine, rasayana, is means literally translates to longevity of life. So I think we've been doing longevity in one sense. The sun is a great rasayana, so the sun provides longevity. And so it will come down to what people will define as longevity or longevity clinics. And I think we're seeing that what they're defining as that is going to be launching quite rapidly. We're going to see that in the short term as well, and it'll continue to. And there'll be different levels of it. There'll be ones who are, you know, doing an amazing amount of substance behind it. And there'll be ones that are covering just what they need to keep up with the trend as well. And that's with anything, like we talked about, that
Yeah.
grows. Um, and then also the traditional spas and hotels will also be in the process of still rolling out what they were rolling out before, the previous trends of more holistic integrations for sleep, fatigue. Those kind of things will continue to grow as well. And of course, short-term, long-term growth for AI. You know,
Mm.
um, uh, right now we see AI as a useful tool for a number of things. Pre-program support, transcribing, improving guest experiences will come out as well. But then could AI head towards more like predictive analytics, enabling wellness programs tailored to individual health metrics? What will that look like? How will that be? How will that be? Of course, it'll be there, but how substantive will it be as well? Um, it's an unknown. AI could analyze data for sure to suggest customized wellness plans and span diet, exercise, sleep, mindfulness, possibly as well. Essentially offering like a digital wellness concierge. And I think we're going to see that in the midterm kind of thing as well. Long term about it, though, not sure. Like does AI, go into a space where you get real-time biometric sensors that redefine or refine your needs, determine your treatments as and when you're walking, living, you know, um, you know, whether it's in a facility or whether it's at home, providing your treatments at the same time, all encompassing like programmer. It could be quite scary, but also it could be quite transformative. We don't know actually. My mother always cautions me not to enable AI. If I say I've asked the robot about something, she said, uh, she says, stop enabling it. She gets, but where it goes will be its own story for sure. And I think one of the other things that will probably happen, I think, in the midterm, and is a shift towards also more standards. We're seeing that with the Standards Authority for Training in Cancer Care as one body as well. There's many others. I think that will also be, there's a lot of us providers providing different things in different aspects. So it won't be just around cancer care, but whether it's for sleep, whether it's for fatigue, etc. But almost an ability possibly to or standards that meet, okay, well, you do qualify to be able to provide certain services as well. And so I think that will sort of come into place because, we have to be mindful that, as we grow and grow, we grow responsibly and what we promise has to be substantive, when we lay a claim and have to be careful how we lay a claim as
Oh,
well. And we're
yeah,
very cautious.
very much.
Even though we have the substantive experience that we do, we're very cautious on what we claim. We never, um, we always err on the side of caution. We'd rather do that, to be honest. And, we always say we support, as well. But, like with aromatic medicine, I think like in France, I think already the doctors are now in charge of administering it and not the aromatherapist, which where it should belong with as well. So that could happen, where so you have the responsibility to make sure what you do well and safely as well at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's just that within some safeguarded standards, but not going into kind of conventional medicine, but keeping it within a more an alternative way of doing and healing.
Yeah, for sure.
And given how the industry is growing and where it's going in the mid to long term, and we really don't know how it's going to go, but clearly there is going to be a transformation. And as people are more and more wellness conscious, they care about their well-being, we are facing a more sophisticated client each day. What is your top priority as a brand now, given the way the industry is growing, and how do you plan, to meet that priority?
Well, so I think, well, what our top priority has been this last year, I guess, as well. We went through a rebrand recently where um, we'd committed actually to one of our partners at Six Senses to remove as much plastic as possible by 2022. We came a little bit in 2023. Pandemic was a little bit of uh, a, 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 a de-accelerator in one sense, an accelerator in other things. But we managed to launch that late last year and have been rolling that out this past year. We managed to remove 80% of our plastic. So that was one of our priorities as well. And there's still so much more to do. We're nowhere near um, done or finished. I don't think anyone is as well. And it definitely shouldn't be something I would say is a marketing tool. It's be something that it's a given. And I think it's amazing to see some of the work some of our colleagues and other brands are doing as well. So I think there's a real positive future in that. Of course, pandemic made things go a back step a little bit, but I think people are now catching back up on that as being a front of mind focus. So I digress a little bit. But and the other thing is, like I mentioned before, one of our priorities is to get our training and our robust training, face-to-face training programs to a place of strength. And we've been doing that, and with our partners, and it will continue to do that. So that's been, I guess, a place of re-establishing so that we can then move forward. Because there's no point in bringing in new things and bringing in more advanced aspects when you haven't got your base solid as
Yeah,
well. So
you need to build upon a
the
strong,
foundation
solid
has to
base.
be strong. The foundation has to be strong as well, for sure. And sometimes, like with everyone, we want to move faster than that because the trends are, but it's so important to really focus on what matters to us the most as well in that sense. So we check ourselves on that a little bit. The other is, we have an academy that we've been trying to launch or relaunch, I should say. I mentioned before, I think my mother has a diploma course in Ayurveda aromatherapy. It's one of the first courses of its kind in the world back then. It was accredited many, many years ago. It's a 2,400-hour course, so it's quite a heavy diploma. There's a Cert 4, which in Australia, that's sort of like the first level that you can do it before you go to a diploma. That in itself would qualify actually as a diploma, and that's a 1,400 hour component of it. We halted my mother doing that course because she was doing it all face to face, and I wanted to make it a more sustainable delivery format. Took me a long time, and not just pandemic, but even before that, because we were traveling with our work. But we are at a place now that we are able to ready potentially launch it next year. So that's going to be um, working on different collaborations in the online education center. It's not completely going to be for spa industry or wellness industry as such, but people from that industry can definitely come and learn more or more theory or more advanced aspects of different aspects from there. So that is also one of our priorities at the moment as well. So the education vertical that we have that we was born from subtle energy, we want to revive that, if that makes sense as well. And so that work goes beyond mum basically as well. That's the goal.
No.
And so that's one of our goals. The other, I guess, is to continue our brand awareness push, which ties in with our retail strategy. We just launched with in Paris with Le Bon Marché, which is an iconic department store as well. So the idea is that we also, scale up our consumer marketing as well, so that people get that education from us from that perspective and directly from us as well. So we have created strong strategies for collaborations, and we want to increase our visibility in that sense at the same time, which then in turn strengthens our partnerships with our wellness partners as well and our spa partners.
No, I love the priorities. I mean, and it's like education is the focus, and not only in one small segment. You're educating people around the world, and also that consumer education is so important because people want to kind of self-educate too. I mean, you have different tiers. Obviously, you have professionals who are educating in a different way. And some could be spa professionals, but also that consumer education plays an important role. And I like how you're focusing on that. And, going back to what we were talking about earlier on, traditionally, now I've been in this industry now for 22 years, and traditionally, wellness has not built a track record of stellar performance. At tops, you'll see what 3 to 4, and maybe nowadays people are throwing the figures of 8% of total hotel revenue, depending on what part of the world you are. But at the end of the day, they're not the heavyweights like 30 or 40% of total hotel revenue. Um, how can, in your opinion, wellness build that track record that inspires confidence in hoteliers?
It's one of the hardest things I think to measure in terms of what the value is of your wellness investment, But I think data is definitely key. It is a tough one. It's not as straightforward as F&B, and I think uh, my colleagues in the industry and the pioneers before us have said this constantly as well. You can't put a value sometimes on it that is easily measured per square foot or per square meter as they traditionally would. But you can build them through case studies, through success stories as well, for sure, to show tangible benefits. And I would say those case studies can be of different aspects. Like I said before, this spa or this wellness offering doesn't have to be this menu. You can do it and do it well using this menu or this brand. So, showing the different business models when adopting the business model that works for your property, I think as well. Of course, highlighting, the growing consumer trend, the demand for wellness is there, which that reassures them for sure. But I guess emphasizing the value of partnering with credible wellness experts, which adds authenticity and trust to the offerings. But at the same time, working with consultants who are grounded in their work, who know, okay, well, who can help you decide, yes, actually, you know what, this is something that will be legitimately a strong offering for you, and this is the investment you should put into it. Yes, you could do all of this, but actually, I wouldn't advise that for you. And you need someone um, who can adopt that really well for you as well.
And, most of my clients are owners of boutique hotels. So they don't know wellness per se, but they don't even know hospitality in the traditional sense, nor do they want to do that. What kind of data could you recommend them to take into account? I know it's very difficult to put a tangible value into most of what wellness is because wellness has an intangible and tangible aspect. But what data would you encourage them to look at?
Um, yeah, so I think, I guess definitely like, guest satisfaction scores, I guess you call it, related to wellness offerings. But I think sometimes some of those, the way that's collected needs to sometimes be improved. And of course, you're not going to get everyone sitting down with you, but if you can follow it on like a consultation, as part of a consultation is a follow-up, and that's really important. So if that can be embedded some way, that's when you get true data and really good value data as well. Um, and it's not so structured data, but it's quite valuable. And so from that, you could really get quite a bit of data from sure. But repeat visitation rates, of course, guest spending patterns around wellness, that will all help at the same time. Metrics, I guess, like average length of stay, usage rates, of the wellness facilities, but also the market trend data as well. I think showing an increased consumer interest, but we're seeing that the bubble's growing and growing each time as well. But I think I'll just keep repeating. At the same time, the property needs to reflect on what its goals are, because and it has to be aligned with the property's DNA, because just being part of a trend is reaching, and that reach will show. It will show, and has to, when you do something in wellness, it needs to be part of the DNA of the property, part of the offering, and sometimes that there can be a gap there, because I've seen hotels where this hotel might be the hotel's focused on this, but the wellness offering is totally focused separately. But the city itself that it's in, it works. So it really comes down to location by location, individual by individual, and then seeing different case studies and which model maps up to that as well.
And talking about, each industry is different, each property is different, each market is different. What is the relationship between wellness in your market, and how do you see that, wellness and hospitality to be more specific, and how do you see that developing?
Um, I guess I guess with the data that's there of the trends, it's growing for sure. Um, but you definitely have to stay true to what we do best. We have to stay true to what we do best and to develop according to those lines and not just jump to the trend. For us as well, especially, we see trends happening and we are developing. You have to constantly innovate, and you have to innovate to what you know and what you do. Of course, you can diversify, but and that diversification has to make sense as well. So otherwise, we believe it doesn't have longevity. You will suddenly become a trend hopper, rather than something substantive, which people then look at trust for the work that you do. Um, you can bring in other aspects, of course, and diversify, like I said, but that has to be come from a space that you come from as well. So I think that is what we can then provide to hospitality, and that relationship can then nurture further as well from with that as well.
And people who don't, like hoteliers who don't like know hospitality too well, they're in this, they're new to the space. Boutique hotel owners who want that wellness focus, probably not that strong spa side of this aspect, but they do want to offer treatments. They do want their guests to have that wellness experience. What advice would you give them? Because you have a wellness brand yourself, right? It's a holistic wellness offering. It's skin science and holistic wellness offering. So you know firsthand what that is. You also have the clinic. You have that education element. So what nuggets of wisdom can you give these people entering this
I,
arena?
gue- I guess the biggest one, which we sometimes battle on, but we're seeing people move positively. People are coming around to understanding this as well, is menu engineering, I would say. When you are looking at a menu within your spa, within your hotel, there is, you do need to fill the different offerings that you need to, but to overfill a menu is probably one of the worst things that you could do. To cannibalize a menu, um, where you've got treatments eating on each other treatments, and yes, the spa is doing well, but you've actually got it spread so thin that you can't develop your therapists on those treatments further. See, for us, when we train and it comes, you do your base training, but you need volume for that training to cement for some of our therapies. Otherwise, so we've been a bit more cautious now where we won't put everything into every place, or we won't go into places where we know that the menu doesn't look like it will succeed to get us the volume that we need. And so I would definitely say find your partners, stick to your partners, and grow with your partner. Longevity within the partnership. And of course, the partner has a responsibility to make sure that they are successful with you as well. So it's a two-way street in that as well. But we definitely look at our partnerships in 5-year and 10-year increments rather than 2-year increments. And that is important because then your partner can then take you on a journey and grow with you as well. And that I think is a very important thing. I think also, look at your investments very cautiously, very carefully. Invest in tactile because while the term as longevity as people are seeing it and biohacking is going to be very beneficial. These are therapies that are incredibly beneficial that are coming into the space. Tactile therapy is still going to be 80%, 90% of your revenue. And so where you touch and how you touch should deliver the results from there, not just be, okay, this is what we do. And if you want to sleep better, you have to go here. No, you should start from where you are. So that's my opinion, and there could be many different opinions on it as well. But I definitely think investing in tactile is very important. It motivates your therapist as well. Remember, they are from a business commercial point of view, they are your money makers as well. So they need to be motivated with training and with the right training. And so while the push towards bringing in AI and gadgets and I 100% agree with it, but don't forget your tactile. That's what I probably sort of my bit of advice there as well. So menu engineering and tactile focus as well.
I love that advice. I do. I mean, and just hearing you, there is this need for that personalization. You can't go wide. And in our industry, the more our therapists touch people, the more they get to know the treatment, the better they get to know the product, the questions they have arise. They evolve as therapists too and professionals. And I think we don't choose this profession if it is just, it's a vocation. We do it because we enjoy it. So I think this strategy also helps with therapist retention because therapists are it's a scarce resource right now. And we need to look after them instead of working the digits to the ground, working with them, helping them, actually see, what are the results instead of running from one treatment to another. And that also breaks that transient relationship that hotels have with their guests. It doesn't need to be transient. Yes, the physical touch, you obviously have to be in the place, but there is so much more that can be done on the pre-arrival and post-departure. And that, as you were mentioning earlier on, that longevity of that experience. And if you have such a wide menu, probably all the bells and whistles and the top brands and all. But if you're only doing one or two surface level, it's very difficult to accompany your client in their wellness journey. I mean, there comes a point that you do have to go deeper. As a brand, you grow together, it's that relationship, but without that dialogue and that iteration, we're not going to have sustainable results going forward.
Yeah. And I think that's like what you said, is that there's so much that we could do outside of the spa as well. The pre-arrival, the consultation. And I think the other thing that boutique owners can also look at or as well is, how you can integrate within the room itself, how you can provide something that's substantial in the room, subtleties that can actually be, but that requires an investment. And you shouldn't look at it as an amenity. If you are doing something that you want to look at as a wellness offering within a room, look at it as a something that you invest in and the guest invests in because it's a product that goes into the room, not an amenity. So I would probably suggest that as well. And I think it's definitely something that, it's an exciting time, I think, to see what will actually happen with all the technologies, with all the push towards, different aspects of wellness. But I have confidence in it as well. So no, I think with things and things become fads, and of course things become popular, but actually there's a lot of confidence in the fact that people do come back and search for what's the root of it and providing something substantial. We saw that in the yoga industry as well. And so yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens next as well for sure.
I know. Fantastic. I mean, such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation. Love what you do. Your mom, your sister. I mean, this is a beautiful family operation, and I love what you guys stand for and what you're doing. So keep up the great work. And for those of you who want, many of my hotelier colleagues are new to the industry. So if they want to work with you or if they want to learn more about subtle energies, how can they reach you?
Yeah, well, we're very approachable. And so please find us on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well under Nick Irani or through our website. We're not a very large company, so any kind of inquiry that comes through the website will come directly to us as well. So, please feel free if there's any questions as well. It doesn't have to be work related or a potential partnership inquiry. If you do have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out and anything that we can help with as well, for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your valuable insights, Nick. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Anil. Thanks for having us on here and thanks for all the work that you're doing for the industry as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.